right, everyone, get ready, because today we are diving deep into the world of sleep paralysis. You guys know we love to take your suggestions, and a bunch of you sent us this video from Quantum Wisdom called What Really Happens During Sleep Paralysis. Who's watching? So let's get right to it.
You know, it's wild how sleep paralysis seems to happen all over the world and throughout history. People have been talking about these crazy experiences forever, but we still don't really know what to make of it. Like, is it just science? Or is it all in our heads? Or could there be like a spiritual side to it?
Yeah, the video breaks down how sleep paralysis works, and it's basically like you wake up, but you're totally frozen and you can't talk or anything, and usually you feel super scared and like someone's watching you. It's almost as if like your brain hit the snooze button, but your body's alarm is still going off.
Oh, I love that analogy. What's really going on is that when we're in REM sleep, which is when we have the most vivid dreams, our brains basically turn on this safety feature called Atonia. Like, imagine taking your car key out of the ignition. The engine just can't start without it. That's Atonia. It stops us from acting out our dream, which is probably a good thing for anyone who's ever dreamt they were flying.
Okay, that makes sense. But why does that glitch happen where our brains wake up before our bodies shut?
Well, sometimes that safety switch doesn't turn off properly, and so our minds are awake, but our muscles are still paralyzed. It's like if you've ever used a computer, when the software and the hardware are out of sync. And that's when things get really weird because our minds are kind of still dreaming, and so we start to hallucinate.
Wait, are you saying that all those shadows and creatures people see during sleep paralysis are just hallucinations? But they feel so real. And it's even creepier how people all over the world see the same things over and over again, almost like there's some kind of script. The video even talks about how some of the most common things people see are these shadowy fillers lurking in the corner.
Oh yeah, and then there's that classic one, the Old Hag. This one seems to tap into some really deep fears about getting old, and maybe even the power of older women, at least in some cultures. People describe it as this feeling of being suffocated, like there's this old woman sitting on their chest. That one would freak me out because it's like this primal fear of being totally helpless.
Oh, totally. That one is straight out of a nightmare. And the video also talks about the Hat Man, which is like this creepy figure who just stands there and watches you. Makes you wonder if it's like our fear of authority or something like that, or just the fear of the unknown.
Oh, that's such a good point. The fact that these figures appear in so many different cultures suggests they might be connected to like universal fears that we all have. The Hat Man with his face hidden could be like a symbol of power or the things we can't see or understand.
And then you've got those alien-like beings that some people see. They talk about feeling like they're being examined or even probed. It's interesting how these experiences kind of mirror alien abduction stories. Do you think it's possible that we're all just so anxious about the unknown and things beyond our control that it manifests in these similar ways?
It's definitely something to think about. I mean, science explains these things as hallucinations, but that doesn't really explain why people from all over the world see the same hallucinations, does it? Makes you wonder if these figures represent something deeper, something that connects to the human experience as a whole.
You know, a few times I've had those moments where I felt kind of stuck when I was falling asleep. Thankfully, never full-blown sleep paralysis or anything. But even those few seconds were freaky enough to make me realize how scary it would be if it lasted.
I can imagine. It's like those brief moments give you a taste of how intense it can be. Now, the scientific explanation is definitely interesting, but a lot of people find themselves drawn to like more spiritual explanations of sleep paralysis. It's like looking at it through a totally different lens. It makes sense, though, why people might look for answers beyond just science, you know, especially when those hallucinations feel so real and scary.
Exactly. And the video talks about some of those spiritual ideas. And even though I'm more of a science person, I gotta admit, some of them are pretty interesting. Like astral projection, where your mind basically leaves your body and goes to other places. It's like something from a...
And you find that idea in all sorts of spiritual traditions, like it's saying that sleep paralysis is like a doorway, or that the barrier between our world and other dimensions gets thinner or something.
Whoa. Right, like what if those experiences are actually showing us something beyond what we normally see? The video also mentioned this idea that these things we see might be spirits or beings trying to talk to us. Some people even think they are like protectors or guides, while others think they're evil.
Yeah, it's so crazy how people interpret it in such different ways. Yeah. They even talk about the Kanashibari in the video. It's this Japanese spirit that supposedly holds you down and causes sleep paralysis. It's like These beliefs are a huge part of some cultures.
So I have to ask you, what do you think about all this the spiritual stuff. Does any of it resonate with you? I'm still kind of on the fence about it, but I can see how those beliefs could be comforting for someone who's had a really bad sleep paralysis.
I think we got to keep an open mind about these things, you know? These beliefs mean a lot to some people and bring them comfort.
Yeah.
Whether we believe it or not, it shows that we as humans always try to find explanations for things we don't understand.
That's a good point. But let's say for a second that these things are just our brains messing with us. Doesn't that just show you how powerful the mind is, that it can create such vivid and terrifying experiences? Kind of wild when you think about it.
For sure. It shows how complex and creative our brains are, even when they're not working right. It also shows how our fears and anxieties can, really affect us physically and mentally.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit. What can people actually do if they experience sleep paralysis? The video gives some practical advice, which I think is super important to talk about.
Definitely. First things first, good sleep hygiene, which is something we should all focus on anyway. It's about getting on a regular sleep schedule, avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed, and just having a relaxing routine before you go to sleep.
Like setting yourself up for a good night's sleep, right? Minimizing anything that could mess with your sleep cycle and make you more likely to have those glitches.
Exactly. And if you do experience sleep paralysis, the most important thing is to stay calm. I know that's way easier said than done when you're scared and feeling trapped, but reminding yourself it's temporary and won't hurt you can help you feel less afraid. The video suggests focusing on your breathing or picturing something calming.
Yeah, those are great tips for dealing with anxiety in general. But I also thought it was interesting how the video said you could try to change how you think about sleep paralysis. Like, instead of seeing it as this horrible thing, could it be a chance to learn about yourself, to explore the hidden parts of your mind?
That's a really cool way to look at it. And it goes back to the idea that understanding something can make you less afraid of it. Knowing what's happening to you both physically and mentally can help you approach the experience with less fear.
Like turning fear into curiosity, which can be really powerful. And of course, if you're really struggling with sleep paralysis, don't be afraid to ask for help. Talking to a therapist who specializes in sleep disorders can make...
And connecting with others who get what you're going through can be so helpful too. Online support groups can give you a sense of community and make you feel less alone.
That shared experience can be so powerful, especially when you're dealing with something as unusual and often misunderstood as sleep paralysis. Wow, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from the hard science to the more spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
It's incredible how sleep paralysis can be interpreted in so many different ways. It really makes you think about what consciousness is and how much we still don't know.
You know, I think what's really cool is that no matter what you believe, sleep paralysis makes you face the unknown. It challenges what we think is real and what our minds are capable of.
Yeah, and even though we talked about all this, I feel like I have even more questions now than I did before. But I actually think that's a good thing. It means we're really exploring and trying to understand something new and mysterious.
Definitely. It's that curiosity that makes us want to learn and discover new things and new perspectives. And who knows, maybe someday we'll figure out what's really going on with these strange and fascinating experiences.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive on sleep paralysis, I want to leave you with something to think about. If these entities are really just our fears like some people believe, what does that tell us about how powerful our minds are? Can our minds actually shape what we experience as reality?
And on the other hand, if there is something spiritual about sleep paralysis, could it be like a window into other worlds?
Yeah.
Showing us something beyond what we normally see?
That's a question that each of us has to answer for ourselves. It depends on what we've experienced and what we believe. But one thing's for sure, whether we look at it from a scientific or spiritual point of view, sleep paralysis shows us that there's so much we still don't know about the universe and our place in it.
And hey, don't forget, the Deep Dive is always here for your questions and the things you're curious about. So keep sending us those awesome topics and we'll keep diving deep with you.